It's late GM, and it is a Sunday afternoon, and it's going to be a baseball day. We've already had the uh, game from London. We're going to have. I'm personally going to be watching a lot of the College World Series game today with my LSU Tigers. My son went to LSU, so LSU baseball is a big deal in the Larry GM house, and we will be watching that, and then we'll watch the Astros tonight, taking on the Dodgers, and hopefully winning a game in LA. So here we go, guys. I wanted to jump in. I know that there's been quite a bit of feedback. I guess I'll say, well, it hasn't been bad. I mean, compared to normal articles, it's about the same. But we put out an article last night, and talking about Jon Singleton, and the Astros went and signed Jon Singleton to a minor league deal. Not sure he's ever going to go into the major leagues this year, but I'm assuming that if they've made this deal, they're giving themselves an option, and we'll talk about that at the very end. But it poses a very interesting opportunity. Jon Singleton profiles. If you could forget the history of Jon Singleton with the Astros and just look at where he's been in the last couple of years, if you could not make him 31 years old and make him 26 again or 24 again, we'd be really excited about this. But he is 31 years old, and we do have a history with Jon Singleton that most Astros fans cannot get past. But I asked the guys, I work hard on some of these titles that I put on these articles. Can Singleton save the Astros offense? Because the Astros offense is mediocre at best, and they scored 7 last night, but they haven't done that a lot. And so without Jordan Alvarez, they're struggling. All right, well, let's talk about it. So I wanted to get on and kind of just go through some of these things and make it clear what I'm really trying to say in this article. I'm not claiming that Jon Singleton, I mean, despite that title, I'm not really saying he is the savior of this offense or this team. But I'm saying if for once Jon Singleton came to the major leagues and did what his minor league stats might project him to do, it would be pretty interesting how that could work with the rest of the Astros offense. We'll get into that. So here we are. We have the Astros have played a surprising number of rookies this year. I didn't know that I knew that they had played 6 position player rookies. This is per Fangraphs because there's a little bit of difference in rookie classification. So I'm just going to go with what the Fangraphs says. 6 position players. Jolks and Diaz are obviously the biggest ones of the rookies. Hang on, let me get this up and I'll improve my lighting just a little bit. Okay, there we go. Then they've also had 7 rookie pitchers. Brown, France, Blanco, Martinez being the ones that you would think of the most. They do have a few position players that the Astros could count on as prospects that could make a difference. Lee Dearden and maybe Leon. But here's kind of the big picture here, guys, is there's from a position player standpoint, the best players in the system are lower down. They're double A. Some are getting to triple A, but they're not quite ready to really make a difference this year. Example as Gilbert. Gilbert's kind of struggling at double A since he was promoted. So um, yeah, thanks to GM Bagwell for making Dusty play the rookies. Yeah. Oh wow. And Brandon, you said it all there. I don't want to go down that rabbit trail. So here we go. So the next, if you look at the Astros offense, you look at it from a projected WAR standpoint for the rest of the season, the two biggest holes, the two biggest places that the Astros need help are catcher and first base. Catcher is somewhat of a self-inflicted wound because of the fact that the Astros play Maldonado so much. I'm not going to get deep into that rabbit trail other than to say, look, the Astros already have an answer at catcher. They just need to play him more. His name is Yanier Diaz. They have another prospect at catcher, although he's not having a great year in AAA. His name is Corey Lee. So, as far as catcher, there's no real thing to do there. First base, Manichevic hasn't been great in AAA. They've already called up uh, Madris, and he's going to be given an opportunity as a backup. And Madris also plays, in the outfield as well, as we covered in the Madris article. So the next prospect really in first base would be Loperfino, and he is doing really well, but again, he's not quite ready to come help the team this year. The other player that they've tried at first base is Hensley. Hensley struggled when he was in the majors earlier this year, and he's done back in AAA. He's been okay, and we'll show that in a minute. So those are some players, right? So I put this little teaser poll out, and when I'm giving you some information, but I'm taking the names away, it's to make a point. Like, stop thinking about these players' names and start looking at their actual performance, right? So this is a list of players and 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 how they've done in AAA so far this year. And you can see there's one player on this list that looks like they could really help. These are all players that have played some first base in AAA. And there's one of these players that stands out as a potential player. That player happens to be Jon Singleton. Now, I could take you down memory lane with Jon Singleton. Anybody that was an Astros fan 2014, 2015, they probably have a very strong opinion about Jon Singleton, who came up when he was a 22-year-old and also played in 2015, was a 23-year-old. And though he was actually disappointing. Now, we're going to get into that a little bit, but the 2014 team was the team that was like the young guys were taking over. We had Jose Altuve having his first really great season, and George Springer was a rookie in 2014. We had Carlos Correa, number one on prospect list all over the country, and he was about to show up on the scene. That team had a 99 WRC plus, basically average. For us in 2014, that was a great sign because the teams before that were terrible. So it's interesting because right now the Astros have a 100 WRC plus, which we are all in shock and awe and upset about, right? But it just shows you how similar the 2014 team is to the 2015 team now, and how it is interesting our different perspectives. We were excited in 2014. Obviously, we're coming from a very different place. Now, you could claim that in both cases, we're counting on rookies to try and help that offense get going. So let's talk about it. So if John Singleton was so good, why did the why did the Brewers basically let him go? And this is John Singleton's stats, and this is his stats in AAA and AA. And you can see, okay, well, the 14, 15, 16, 17 stats are pretty irrelevant to who John Singleton is as a player today. But you notice his ages. He was very young when he came to the major leagues in 2014, 2015. There were some marijuana related issues there, and I'm not even sure that those issues would be a problem today based on testing that happens now. I don't really know, but it's a different culture than even it was 8 years ago relative to marijuana. Um, Here's his stats in 22, 23. I mean, in for Milwaukee again, a very good player. Looks pretty similar to the John Singleton we knew back when he was a young rising prospect, number five prospect, top five prospect in the Astro system. So, and then he came up, had 32 plate appearances, and was absolutely atrocious for Milwaukee. striking out 34% of the time, which similarly he struck out a ton when he came up in 2014, 2015. But when he came up in 2014 and 2015, he was basically an 80 WRC plus player. Now, I don't know if you guys realize, but 80 WRC plus player at first base would be would be an upgrade over what we've had so far this year. So we would probably welcome that with open arms. Well, we would not welcome the -7 WRC plus player he was when he came up for 32 plate appearances in Milwaukee. Milwaukee dumped him. Now, maybe there were other issues there. I haven't researched it to know all that, but you know, Milwaukee just said we can't take this anymore. You're striking out too much. You're not walking as much as you were in the minors. You know, your OPS of 326 is embarrassing. So he's gone back. He got signed by the Astros. He had a home run last night. When I think it was 2 for 7 or 3 for 7. I don't remember what it was. So yeah, and I don't know that Brandon. I don't know who he faced when he came up with the Brewers. Either way, it wasn't his performance was not good enough for the Brewers to stick with him. So that's the good and the bad of Singleton. He's essentially been this 4A player for most of his playing career, although he's been out for years before he came back. And now he's been in AAA for 2 years or 1.5 years. So what do the Astros? So I say that Jon Singleton can be what the Astros need. Why do I say that? What does the Astros need? Well, number one, the Astros are a much better hitting team, a 108 WRC plus, 8% above average, versus left-handed pitching versus being below average versus right-handed pitching. That below it. So I gave you the breakdown of the players that constitute the core of the Astros offense and have enough plate appearances to really to be relevant for statistical analysis. And their WRC plus, their walks, their strikeouts, their OPS. You can see that here the Astros, if the Astros did not bat Martin Maldonado versus right-handed pitching, and I know they do, but if they made that adjustment, because honestly, Maldonado's good, or not good. I mean, he's 93 WRC plus for left-handed pitching. If the Astros just worked a platoon with Maldonado, where he said you can catch versus the left-handed pitchers, we're going to let Diaz catch versus the right-handed pitchers. That would actually be a very good plan for catcher, and let Diaz do some DHing versus left-handed pitchers. That would be a great plan for the use of the catcher, and we might do very well with that. So if you did that with like the only position here versus right-handed would be the problem would be a first base. Now this is where you know Jose Abreu has been a lot better. In fact, you guys watch me on Twitter today. He's been the third hottest hitter since June 8th on the Astros. And so if the Astros brought in a player, and Bly Madras also does very well against right-handed pitching. So it might be interesting to watch if they actually do a platoon with Bly Madras and Abreu right now, and figure out if they really want to try to go with Singleton versus Madras. I'm sorry, I call him Madras. It's really Madras. Um, or if they want to go Madras or Singleton. Both of them are really good versus right-handed pitchers in the minors. Now, see what happens when they come up in the majors. If you took Jose Abreu, maybe you let Jose Abreu bat versus right-handed pitchers with to our fastball dominant pitchers. That Abreu is much better against fastballs than he is against other pitches right now. If you let Singleton and/or Madras hit against non-fastball dominant right-handed pitchers as your starting lineup, then that would be. I need to turn this caption off. I just realized I had it on. So if you had Madris or Singleton go against the right-handed pitchers that were not fastball dominant, that might be the way to go. So Brandon, yes, there's ways to do this where you you have platoons, and it's just, I mean, so many of these issues come down to one person, and that one person, it is who it is. It's Dusty, right? And but here we go. If you accepted the fact that maybe if the Astros had a something else that could bat in the right versus right-handed pitchers, that is what this table says you need. You need somebody else to hit against right-handed pitchers that plays first base. Now, I know the Astros have tried Dubon at first base. I know the Astros have tried Kessinger at first base. Guys, they need a first baseman. Now, that could be that could be Diaz, because Diaz is great against right-handed pitching, as you can see in this table. But like I already said, that the answer for Diaz is he needs to be catching versus right-handed pitching, right-handed starting pitching. So what if the Brewers quit on Singleton too early? These are Singleton splits, righty to lefty, AAA for the last two seasons. You can see how amazing this guy, and this guy's always been great against right-handed pitching. You can see, look at these: 928 OPS, 969 OPS in AAA versus right-handed pitching. You stick that in the line, even if it's down 150 points from that, it's way better than what we've been getting. Okay, if we get a 720 WRC plus hitting, I mean 720 OPS hitting first baseman versus right-handed pitching, that is versus the 564 we've been getting. It's 160 points higher, and that's saying he's down over 100 points from where he's been here. That would be incredibly productive. The offense would not be as bad versus right-hand pitching as they've been. So the simple question with Singleton is he capable of hitting and adjusting to big league pitching? That's been the question about Jon Singleton since 2014 when he first came up. And honestly, guys, if we had 2014 or 2015 Jon Singleton, it would still be better than what, like I said, better than Jose Abreu versus right-handed pitching. Now, caveat to that is Jose Abreu's been hitting a lot better, so you may pick and choose where you would deploy this platoon, but it may still be the right thing to do. Now, Madris may be the better option because Madris has positional flexibility. But here's what's going on. Dana Brown is giving himself options. The realities of the Astros minor league system is they don't have a lot of players that are options to be able to bring to the major leagues, either pitching or at batting. I covered pitching yesterday in the article when we talked about the two pitchers that they brought up, that they purchased in trades. Dana Brown is giving himself major league ready options, and if there's more injuries or if there's bad performance, Dana Brown is prepared to go pull those options. I believe, my heart of hearts, that's what he's doing. Dana Brown is trying to put this team in a position to be able to make the postseason. It is touch and go. I don't know if you people realize, but if the season ended today, the Astros would not be in the postseason. They would be fifth in the wild card, and and okay, the fifth in the wild card is only half a game out, so there's no reason they can't make it. But they're losing ground to the Rangers. you know, the people that just said, "Oh, they're going to catch the Rangers," they're going to catch the Rangers. You better hope the Astros in a week sweep the Rangers, because they're going to need to put themselves in a position to really catch the Rangers. So he's Dana Brown's giving himself options. So in case you want the left-handed pitching versus left-handed pitching data, it's right there. a little better, and some of the sample sizes versus lefties are not sufficient to really be looking at it. So make sure you consider the ex-woba data when you look at that data. All right, so there you go. That's where I think is going on with Singleton. That's what I think is going on with the Astros. Um, and Brandon, they could, but again, you're just projecting these pitchers to do something from Double A that may or may not be happen. Okay, and you know what the Astros are going to get themselves into is a 40-man roster crunch position. Just remember, they've put guys that are, they at least hope that your Urquidy's coming back. Well, they've already uh, vacated his 40-man roster spot. So when they bring him back, he's got to supplement somebody else. So you got to be careful which players you bring up. And if they wanted to criticize Dana a little bit, is he's he hasn't brought Singleton to the 40-man roster yet. Just to be clear. But Madris is now on a 40-man roster spot. So is Kessinger. Some of these guys that are maybe not long term for this team, being on the 40-man roster and also on the active roster, they're exploring options, and that's just I think those players are either going to be traded. I think the Astros are going to trade some of the guys that are in the outfield. One of the outfielders is getting traded, I believe, and so they are going to have to DFA some players. Now you could say, well, Larry, we can look at the roster and see some DFAs. Well, I mean, we can do that real fast. Let's just jump on it. All right. So I don't know if most people. I'm assuming most people that follow me, you've been to this page, the Fangraphs roster resource page. The players in this kind of, I guess that's beige or whatever color you would call that. They're on the 40-man roster. I don't know if you guys knew that, but there you go. So here's the guys at AAA. Now, one can argue Cesar Salazar, does he need a 40-man roster spot? Does Joe Perez need a 40-man roster spot? I think Joe Perez is probably a trade candidate. Rylan Rylan Bannon, if you DFA'd him today, would another team clean him? Maybe, but I mean, does he need a 40-man roster spot? Um, you're not gonna DFA Belak. You're not gonna DFA Spencer Watkins. You just got him. I do not think they're going to DFA Forrest Whitley, although one can argue he's injured and he has no more options after this year. So maybe you can make that move. I don't think the Astros will. I think they'll try to go to spring training with Forrest Whitley and see where he's at in his recovery and see what the future holds. Um, the relief pitchers, I think the two pitchers on here that are most likely, and I hate doing this because I don't want this, you know, destroy anybody's confidence. But Paredes and Blake Taylor could be in the position of not having a 40-man roster spot. Would somebody pick them up? Maybe. Um, so there you go. There's the roster. You don't see anybody else on the 40-man. So there's a few, but there's not a ton of players that the Astros would really want DFA. So they got to be careful. The point of all that is you got to be careful who you DFA. All right, so there you go. That's Singleton. They will have to DFA someone if they do put him on the 40-man roster and do bring him up to the show. I suspect that they're gonna want to see maybe 2 weeks of Singleton in AAA. I mean, he did a good job last night, and see if relative to, I think they're going to have to do an evaluation of Madris versus Singleton. Who do they really want? Who's the better option for them? Um, and make a decision related to that. Any other questions, Brandon? You're here, and someone else is here too. Any other questions you guys want to ask before we go? But that's where I think we are with Jon Singleton. I'm going to add this video to the article, and you guys can listen to it. But that's what I'm thinking. Again, it's all about options. It's all about options. That's what Dana Brown is doing as a GM, is giving himself options of major league ready players. This farm system does not have a lot of players that one would deem major league ready. Um, and certainly, it's basically, you know, between JJ Matijevic, who's got an 86 WRC plus in AAA. David Hensley's got a 91 WRC plus in AAA. Bly Madras, who had 92 WRC plus in AAA and now is in major leagues. Or Jon Singleton has 119 WRC plus in AAA this year. The only difference is he's 4 years older than the other three. So there you go. Let's see. Let's see what we can see. What happens. The Jon Singleton era again, part two. I never thought Jon Singleton would play a day of organized baseball once he left, and here he came back in 22. He did well in AAA, doing well in AAA again this year. Could Jon Singleton save the Astros offense? It's something to consider, at least until Jordan Alvarez comes back. To have another lefty bat in this lineup would be pretty sweet. A lefty bat we could count on. All right, guys, let's see what happens. Thanks for joining me, and let's go Astros. Take care. Bye bye.